Hello and good day. ShawnJ here, and welcome to Underneath the Shade Tree. On today's episode, I'm thrilled to be reunited with the darling diva Robin Clayton, as she speaks of the courage in taking the leap for another chance at love, learning to honor the person she's become, and finally embracing her passion to do the things she was meant to do. So grab yourself a beverage or a snack and join us underneath the shade tree. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Underneath the Shade Tree. Today, my guest is Rob. What's your last name, darling?
Now it's Clayton.
Yeah, I will say the K one.
It's Clayton now.
Robin Clayton, welcome. How are you doing, darling?
I'm fabulous. How are you?
I am well. I cannot complain at all. Everything is fantabulous.
Great.
So how are things where are you located?
I am currently in the Memphis area, Memphis, Tennessee. Oh. I've been here for about a year now.
A year? Where from?
So most recent, I spent the last, amount of time in Seattle.
Yes.
And that's really kind of home base for me. Okay. But, I've moved around a little bit, but Seattle is definitely home base. And a year ago, I moved here to Memphis to be with my hubby.
Your hubby.
My Batman. I'm his Robin.
Oh,
came up with that too, by the way. Maybe we'll talk about it, but it's a fun story. Anyway, I'm here with him.
Okay.
He was really the only soul I knew in Memphis when I moved here, so it was a big leap of faith.
Very big leap.
Yeah.
Any siblings? Any children? Any pets?
Here or just in general?
In general.
In general, yes. I am the 10th of 11 children. But I grew up as kind of the oldest because there's a big gap between me and the next oldest.
Okay.
So I have a lot of siblings. I have 2 children that I birthed, but through marriage, now I have 9 in my family. I'm very, very blessed that my parents are still with me, both of them. My dad just celebrated his 97th birthday.
Happy birthday.
It's one of the greatest blessings. I'm very fortunate to be able to say that, they're still with me, but they're in Seattle. So, and then I married into a big family. So now I'm getting used to, having brothers and sisters and in-laws and all around me. So it's a good thing.
That is what's interesting because you came from a family of 11. So you now have 11 children in essence yourself.
9.
Okay.
But we do have, at this point, I'm a grandma. I am a grandma, and I have a daughter-in-law. And I'm still working on what we call me. It's kind of tough to jump from, being the hot young thing to grandma.
Well, the good thing is you hot grandma.
Well, thank you. I'm trying to maintain it. And one of my grandchildren she's 20. She's 20. So when you roll up in the mall and you run into your granddaughter and she's like, "Hey, grandma," and she's 20, all of a sudden you're like, okay, yes, I know I left my AARP t-shirt at home, but that's me. That's me. Proud card carrying member.
Oh my God, that is so cool. Oh, wow. So what's your line of work, if you don't mind sharing?
That's a really interesting question right now. So I have spent my whole career in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Something that became my passion based on my own experiences, where I grew up and where I went to college and things like that. It just was a natural progression for me. In fact, when I met you, I was working in the diversity office at Casey Family Programs. So that was literally the one time I've stepped outside of the higher ed arena. All of my work has pretty much been in higher education. So now a year ago, when I moved to Memphis, I left the University of Washington, where I had been for about, off and on 16 years. And I have not landed in a permanent position since then. However, I'm I'm working on maybe getting back into that now that I'm kind of getting my feet settled here, because it's something that is a core value of mine. And something else that has kind of picked up for me is my side gig, which is my love of broadcasting. So now I went to college to be the next Oprah Winfrey back in the day. That was when her show was all big. You
Yes.
remember the theme music when she had
Yes.
the audience and all that. I was like, I want her job. And then I realized you had to pay dues to get her job. And I was like, no, thanks. I'm ready to leave the small town I live in. So I'll just do something else. But by chance, I stumbled into doing some stuff with event hosting and moderating events and doing public speaking, which led to some radio broadcasting with Rainier Avenue Radio
Yes.
.world, which is based in Seattle, and turned into a podcast of my own. And so that's kind of been something I've put a lot of energy into also, just to see, if anything happens with any of that, because you can always reinvent yourself.
Yes.
So I'm not putting myself in any boxes, but those are the ones I've stepped in the professional capacity. So
Sweet. It's interesting because like where we met was at Casey, and you were doing that work in that office. I don't know
yep,
if you know this, and maybe you do, is that you are the reason that I am in diversity and equity work.
I did not know that.
Because when they kind of forced you out, you know, your position became available. And Connie called me up and said, ShawnJ, you need to apply for this job. And I was like,
Yeah,
no, I can't do that. I don't have any experience in that. She goes, boy, she summed it up. It's a glorified secretary position, but because she knew I was in administration. So she thought that would be the way to get me to apply for it. And I was
uh-huh.
like, I don't think it's right for me. She goes, boy, if you don't apply for this job. And I applied because because she's Connie. And so I read the description, went for the interview because you prep, right?
Yeah,
And I had been laid off from Casey at that time. And I was working at an architectural firm.
okay.
And so I was trying to get back, or something. And I went in for the interview, and I was like, oh, it was just so rich. Like I had never thought about, I'm a gay Black man, and I walk through the world that way.
Yeah,
And I walked through the world with that lens. And so I had this information that I didn't know I had.
yeah,
So I got the job and got immersed in that world. And it was like, and what happened was, because of my theater background, I was able to incorporate like how to talk to people when it came to all of that stuff. And if
right.
I hadn't like been there and then gone, because I would have never thought about The Office. Like I was like, well, where's Robin? It goes, well, they kind of forced her out because she was like working telecommunications. I was like, that sucks. Like I was because
It was a mess. So this is the ironic thing, which is a funny that applies to right now. I at the time that I started with Casey, I was in Seattle, right? My then husband, my first husband, got a job in Indiana at Indiana University. So we moved, and they were like, you can telecommute because it's a national organization, right? And we were doing a lot of traveling and things by video anyway. And so anyway, that worked out for a little while. And then I moved to Atlanta. And at some point they decided, we really need you to come back to Seattle. And I was like, I can't do that. I can't come back to Seattle. Famous last words. And so I had to give up the position because they wanted me to come back. Ironically, right after just a couple, 3 months after that, I remarried. And we did move back to Seattle. So I reached out to my supervisor, like, can I use you as a reference for this job? I'm coming back to the University of Washington. What do you mean you're coming back to Seattle? Like that was the reason that I let it go. But you know what? Everything
yeah,
happens for a reason. The funny about that, though, is I laugh because I've now lived in 4 different states. The only place I've had a professional position is Seattle, Washington. It's always telecommuting in Seattle. I never actually work somewhere else. I've lived in Indiana, Georgia, now I'm here in Tennessee, and all of my, like positions are attached to Seattle. So there's something that just keeps pulling me back there no matter what.
Well, it's home. It's home. So that makes
It's
sense.
home.
It's kind of
Yeah.
your anchor that keeps you tethered and kind of grounded,
Yeah.
I would say, probably. Yeah. So
Yeah.
thank you for moving to Georgia.
You're very welcome. And I'm glad it happened because it opened the door for somebody else I care about and love.
Yeah, it was, and I'm doing some of that work now because now everyone's focused on it. Now it's like you do know we've been doing this work for like forever, but now it's like whoo hoo hoo. So
Exactly.
it's nice to have that in my pocket. But it did burn me out though because that's some tough.
It is more than a notion, and it's so personal because, like you said, it's the lens that you view the world through by virtue of not being the status quo. There's so many there's so many privileged things that happen out there that people have a blind spot for it unless you live that experience. And that's not to say only people of color or marginalized populations can be a part of that process and that work, but it is to say that there's something that's very personal about it for those of us who this is just the world that we live in, right? So
you don't get to choose not to.
You don't get to make a choice about it.
Nope.
So might as well try to make some good changes in the world. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
A lot of times this would be a glass of wine, but today it's water.
Well, it's only 2:00 there, right? So
I still got plenty of time.
Exactly. So what do you do for fun outside of work?
Oh my goodness. What do I do for fun? Like I said, I've been doing that podcast thing, which has been my, just a labor of love, a really fun opportunity to connect with other people. Because, a lot of people don't know this, but I am a tremendous introvert. And so it takes, I feel you. I have no problems believing it because people like us, these kinds of opportunities help us expand and talk to people and connect with people. But, if we were just sitting up in the room, just, like a room of strangers or just people, and we didn't have a purpose for the conversation, I'd be like, whoo, how long have we been here? Right? But we can do this for hours. But anyway, that's been really fun and a good way for me to meet people and hear other people's stories. So I've been loving that. I also am really enjoying a newfound love of cooking. I'm glad that I get to put this out in the universe because nobody would believe this about me, Robin Neal, that I am enjoying cooking. I've had all this time on my hands. We watch a lot of the Food Network, and I'm like, you know what? Some of these things that I crave, I can make them. Let me try. And I have this wonderful kitchen that, we have in our home. And I've just been inspired to try things. I just made, last night a lemon poppy seed zucchini bread. And I was like, oh, it turned out good. Let me make one for so-and-so. And then I look in the mirror and I'm like, who are you? But it's a thing that it picked up since I've been here. My kids don't even remember me cooking for them as they grew up. And I'm like, jokers, I fed you. But at the same time, I'm smiling while I'm doing it now.
Yes, well, because they were fed, they just weren't like, you didn't get elaborate with it. It was like going, you're surviving, you're good.
I was raised by a woman who hates cooking, and we never went hungry. She fed us, but one of the most common phrases in our home is, hey, it filled the cavity. Like it was burned, or this tastes funny, or we ate this every 2 days ago. Hey, it fills a cavity. And I adopted that, but now I'm like, and it's sort of good.
Yeah. Because now you're feeding the spirit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's my fun stuff.
Yeah. So one of my other questions was I was gonna ask you, how did we meet? But we already kind of covered that at the Casey place. I try not to talk too much about it because sometimes whoever I have on, we get too deep. Like, oh, can't really say that more so.
I know. Well, it was obviously impactful time in my life,
Yes.
but such a distant memory.
Yeah.
All I remember is the cool people that I met.
Yeah. And I will have to attest to that. That was one of the best things of working of that is giving me that experience in diversity, equity, inclusion work, and then the people that I met. It was sort of, and
Yeah,
they're still in my life today, and it's like,
exactly.
yeah. And people like I met for makeup 6 months, but
Mm,
because we were so like in the work, and then we had to actually build a relationship because of that work. I think
mhm.
that's one of the greatest gifts of having worked there.
Right. Agree. I totally agree.
Yeah. So, oh, so great to see you.
It's so great to see you too. Who you got on your cup? What's on your cup?
Oh, that's my hero.
Oh, go ahead, Wonder Woman.
Yes. Oh,
Mm.
yes. So, what is something that you would say has made you feel the most proudest, and why?
You know, I can't put my finger on one thing specifically, but I will say I feel proudest when something comes back to me from someone that, I touched them somehow and I had no idea it was happening, or something that I said or did landed in a way that it made a difference for somebody. And I had an opportunity to feel that a lot in higher ed, working with students, and people circle back and you see, over the years, things that they've accomplished, and they'll come back and say something like, you were an important part of my journey. And I never felt like anything I did was extraordinary in any way, but it just goes to show that what you say and do to and for people makes a difference. It matters. So you need to be mindful of how you engage in people's lives. One of my proudest things right now that I point to is my oldest son, the one that I birthed. That's oldest because now he's a middle child, right? But he just graduated from college and he
Wow.
did film, right? And his father was a professor, a college professor in education. Obviously, I did my work at the institution, and I remember when he was in middle school, he had a strong affinity for, like video club, and he liked to take pictures, and he would save his allowance and get lights and things like that. And he was such a kid. So when it was time for him to, start looking at colleges and apply, I think he felt like there was going to be this expectation that he do something specific. And I said, yes, that specific thing should be following your passion. Don't count out, your go to a film school. I don't want you to go to the University of Washington because I work here. I don't want you to go to Wazoo because I went there. I want you to go someplace that's meaningful in your journey, because you're going to work hard no matter what, right? You might as well work hard doing something that you care about, and it will have a return for you. So he ultimately took my advice after he heard it from one of my employees. Like, oh, that's great. I'm so glad that my advisor that I employ, was able to tell you that thing I've been telling you for, years. But anyway, he followed his dream and now he's graduated and he's actually supporting himself on his work, doing his passion. He's, making film, he's doing editing. He just came out here to visit for a while. He shot a music video, and now this is what chokes me up. He returns that message to me, right? So I am in this kind of middle space where I'm not sure exactly what the next professional move is going to be, but his advice to me, and it's echoed by my husband, who is my other hero, is, hey, mom, do what you love. You love, this podcast thing. You love doing the radio. You love doing all these things. Do that. That's what you're supposed to do. The universe is pointing you in that direction. It's your passion. You're going to work hard no matter what you do. You might as well work hard doing what you love. And I'm like, the message mattered, and it shaped him in ways that I can now see it meant something. So when I see stuff like that, and that's a personal now, something that has personally come back to me, but anytime in a small way that something comes back that, it says something in your journey impacted me in a way that mattered. Like, hey, this story right now about you getting into diversity because, the space was open. I feel like, okay, that moment was intentional. That was an intentional thing that was supposed to happen for both of us.
Changed my
Although
life.
it didn't feel like, anything significant in that moment, it mattered. It mattered in the course of our lives. So that makes me really proud.
Yeah, it totally changed my life. And it's something I would not have considered, would not have
Yeah.
thought about had you not been in that position. Because I knew you and it was like, okay. But if it was someone I didn't know,
Yeah.
who had left it, I would not, it would not have. So,
well, I hope they were good to you, but we won't talk about all that today.
They were. We made a lot of changes and some we moved the needle a little bit. And what a coworker now calls my brand was really evident even then. And so now it just got fine tuned more that this is who I am. And so it helped a great deal. So,
awesome. Very awesome.
So what challenges have you encountered that you feel have helped shaped you and who you are, or maybe they made you weary? But what was your lesson in that?
Ooh, this was a really easy thing for me to think about and pinpoint is my 2 divorces. Yes, I said 2. So when I met you, I was married to a very cool person who we married young, we met in college, we went off, we went out into the world. Turns out as we grew, our paths just weren't aligned. We had a beautiful son, the one I just spoke of, and we divorced, which was hard because you expect that when you get married you're going to stay married, right? But when it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. And we remained great friends until he passed away shortly after our divorce. Remarried to a person, interesting guy, just say that. And it was a good learning experience. It was a tough road, though. It was a tough road. We had a son. He's 13 now. And so I get to co-parent with him for a while longer. We have our ups and downs, but it was less of an amicable parting. And so that was the end of that. So now I mentioned that my parents are still with us, and they just celebrated their 51st wedding anniversary. Ooh. So now here I am blazing the trail of multiple divorces in my family, oh, that's not necessarily the thing you want to be, ooh, Robin set the stage for failed marriages. But what I learned from that, though, and obviously I don't have to explain why those 2 things made me weary. You have to start over. There's nothing that's pleasant about having to let go of, a hope and an expectation, something you dreamed would be one thing and then it turns out to be another thing. So obviously that made me weary in that regard. But what shaped me about it, and I wouldn't trade it for the world, is it gave me an outlook on life that, number one, I am super resilient. I have had to, kind of burn it all down and start over a couple of times. I have beautiful children that happened in those unions, and I would not trade them for the world. And even in the hard times, I learned a lot about myself. And I think it's in challenges that you start to see who you are and what matters to you, and what you really want and what you think you deserve in life. Not just what the world thinks you're supposed to do, but what do I want for me? Because just doing the same things and having the same outcomes wasn't working. And I learned that everything happens for a reason. Like I said before, had those things not happened, I wouldn't be where I am now. I wouldn't know now what I think is the good foundation for a lasting marriage, because I have remarried. This is my third and final marriage. And, we've been stuck together in COVID for the last, however many months, longer for us, because he's an entertainer and I have been unemployed. So we get a lot of quality time together. And confirmed, he's my dude. He's the one I'm supposed to be with. And it hasn't been just all roses and rainbows and unicorns, because life happens when there's breaking income, and when you're trying to blend families and start over and things like that. But he's really the person that I was hoping to spend my life with when I started the marital journey years ago. And I had a total of 16, 17 years of marriage with the other two total. So I wasn't just like in and out of it. I hung in there and learned, right? And as another outcome, I have, and we both, I think, have this value of sharing our stories. And it was through the journeys of my relationship trials and tribulations that I started to do my podcast, Traveler's Guide to Venus and Mars. It's about relationships and two sides to every coin. Like, I'm not right, you're not right, but we both have a viewpoint. How are we looking at this same situation, seeing it differently? Or where do we see it the same? Let's talk about it and unpack it in a fun way, because only in doing that do you really grow from it, right? And I learned that there are a lot of people out there who go through similar things as me. I'm not the oddball out there. I am one of many. And there's nothing to be ashamed of in that. Let's all talk about it. Let's laugh about it. Let's talk about how we want to see things differently. And I wouldn't have had that opportunity if I hadn't lived through what I lived through. So,
yes, it's amazing because of your parents setting that foundation. You have this image, or not image, but this goal to see, and you go, wow. And I think, to your point, having those relationships, you didn't quit. Like, you hung in there, and it's like, yeah, this isn't working, gotta go. And you didn't give up, because a lot of folks will give up after the first relationship and go, yeah, it's just not for me. So I think having your parents as those role models for you, it's innate. And I guess you got to fail in order to get back up. So,
well, now I ain't gonna lie though. After the second divorce, I was like, I don't know that this is my jam. I don't think marriage is my jam. I don't think this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I had decided, never again. I will never marry again. But when you actually meet the one who is the right person, other things happen. Like, this is one of those things that restored my faith, just faith in general, where you start to believe, like, okay, maybe it's not my plan, but a larger plan that's at work here. And I maybe should at least, see where it takes me. So because of this specific person, I was willing to try again, but I was like, I don't think I want to strike out no more. I don't want to get married. I don't want to have to go to the courthouse to break up again. I want my breakup to be like, hey, it was nice. Best of luck to you.
Deuces.
Deuces. Have a good day.
Yeah. Well, I yearn for that similar connection at some point, and maybe the universe will bring it to me. So
I think that's what it is. It's like, if I'm looking for it, I'm looking under all the wrong rocks. The universe, though, has a way of saying, hey, girl, look right here, or try this, or do this. And it's usually in those moments that I take a leap of faith for something that's just like right in my face, that I'm afraid of. But I'm like, I can try, and the try was to get to know him and discover that he was the one, right? Because otherwise I was like, you're in the music business. No, you live in Memphis, Tennessee. No.
Yep.
So he was
all
awesome.
the reasons to say no instead of
all the reasons.
Why not say yes? Like it's I'm guilty of that. I will find a no instead of look for the yes. Where's the yes? And that's a very valid point.
And it was a blaring yes. A blaring yes.
Oh, see, that's good. Look at you.
Oh, he's gonna have to watch this and be like, babe.
Yes. So with that, is that one of the greatest lessons you've learned thus far, or is there another one that may have shaped you even more so?
I would have to say that's the greatest one that I've learned. But a secondary one to that is, I think the notion of forgiveness, and without going too deep into any specifics there, it's just, a lot of things happen along the way. Obviously, like if you divorce, obviously there were some things that made you believe you couldn't stay together, and there are hard times in that, and there are people that have opinions and input or intervene, or a lot of times there's a lot of missteps and things like that, and it's really easy to feel like the victim in those scenarios, like, oh, I can't catch a break, or I'd be okay if everybody just stopped, pushing me down, or all these things. And I'm not saying that circumstances are always in my control or anybody's control. That I believe, but to be able to pick yourself up and grow and move on and move forward for yourself, you have to kind of develop this notion that you're going to let go of the hard hurt and the things that make you bitter, or that keep you from shining. If I was still sitting up here being mad at whichever hubby, and it wasn't number one, if I was sitting up here being mad, that would be what I carry around, and there have been things along the way, hardships in blending families, or, making big changes in your life, leaving, things that are familiar. And people have, things to say. Maybe they're well meaning, but a lot of times they're wrong. And it's hard to not carry those things. You know what I mean? But one thing I'm working on, because it's a lesson I think that the universe will keep putting in my face until I become very good at it. But I'm aware that this is a growth point for me, because forgiving others is something that you do for yourself. And so that you can be okay, and that you can move on and grow and do the next thing, find your joy. And that would be the other piece of that stuff that was an important lesson in my life.
I love that eyebrow and that little purse on the lips, like, yeah.
A lot of times you're waiting for that apology that ain't never gonna come.
Yeah, ain't never gonna come. And it's like, oh, yeah, that's not gonna come. What am I gonna do with it? Okay. Yeah.
Live my life,
Because they live in theirs.
They are so living theirs. I don't need to carry that which they have let go of. So yeah. I'm good. Next.
Yeah, they've either let go of it, aren't aware of it, or don't care.
That's it. A lot of times it's not aware of, because not everybody is wired the same. Something that feels to me like, God, you had to know you was wrong. They don't know necessarily, because it wasn't, just they're a different approach to same situation. Again, two sides to every coin. And who's to say mine is right?
Yeah, because everyone comes from a different perspective, a different experience, and a different outlook. it lands differently here than it does there, and all of a sudden,
Exactly.
because my relationship was similar, going, you had to, and people would ask me, so why did you all not work? I go, we weren't right for one another. Like, I don't hold any ill will towards him, but there's definitely like, we just weren't right for each other. Our
Mm-hmm.
foundations were very different, and we tried to build upon something, and just like, I didn't give him what he needed. He didn't give me what I needed. And it just, we just
Yeah.
were not meant to be.
I was just as wrong for him as he was wrong for me. so,
Yeah. Yeah.
who's right, who's wrong. It just
Exactly.
is. And I will say that second hubby and I are in a decent place right now. So I don't want to, leave this conversation like he's a butthole and all this, we just didn't work out like
Yeah.
you said.
Just wasn't right. Just wasn't the right situation at the right time with the right person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Okay.
So what is something that has annoyed you significantly in your time on this planet, and why? And what have you learned about yourself from that annoyance?
Ooh, okay. So I think easily what annoys me the most in this world is bigotry, bullying, and abuse of privilege. And I'm not going to get all up into a political tailspin here, but somehow brazen bigotry and not being kind to others is okay right now. And that ain't okay with me. What I have learned is, shoot, I hate when this happens because I may have just had an epiphany and talked myself back into something I just said. This whole thing about forgiveness, and I, it the people that I have the hardest time um, accepting or finding common ground with would be somebody who I just described, someone who has privilege that is abused or, bullied or, I people who other people and, put them down. Like, I feel like I don't need somebody else to be below me for me to be great. Right. That's my outlook on life. So if you got to um, make yourself good, okay, right, by making somebody else, low or, picking on or making fun of or keeping them down so you can get up, stepping on somebody else to get ahead. I can't stand that. I also have to remember that what I just said was to forgive others. And even though, so there have been too many times in my life in the last few years where somebody has, revealed themselves to be one of those types of people that maybe that they were quieter about it in the past. And somehow now it's just okay that, I get to say what I want to say, just like you get
And
to
it's
say
been
what
ripped
you want to
off.
say. It's like, yeah, but what I said never actually did any harm to anybody else. But that's okay. Let's pretend like you didn't realize that you're still the same person that there was something about you that was redeeming. And I can't throw the baby out with the bathwater just because I disagree with something. I'm gonna have to pray on that one, ShawnJ, because as it came out of my mouth, that I don't want to uphold. I'm not trying to ever condone and uphold people who are of that ilk or that mindset. But at the same time, it's in conversation and confrontation, and if we ever had some kind of connection, the only way you'll understand something other than what you're saying is if you hear something from somebody that you respect and care about. Like, if you thought I was cool, and trustworthy, then it might be in my best interest to get past my disgust right now and continue to have a hard conversation. But what I've done is kind of start just backing out and removing myself. Forget you, then, blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to. I don't want to be that person.
But there's a level of self-preservation in that as well.
Yes.
So if you are in that toxic situation, you have to decide, is that best for me right now? Or is
Right.
this best for me? And I think it's weighing that at that time, because I know there are people like that in my life, but they haven't revealed themselves. I've just watched them,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I watch what you don't say.
Right?
And if
Because
you
that
haven't,
speaks volumes.
honey, it screams like you got a bullhorn screaming. And if you say nothing, to me, that says it all. And I believe that you cannot sit by, stand by, stay quiet when others that you know and love and appreciate and respect are being othered, minimized, taken out of this world. You have to have some level of responsibility. And
Agree.
if you do nothing, and especially if you have the privilege, right, and you do nothing, you've told me everything I need to know. So what
Mm.
I then do is, for my own peace of mind, I have to put you in a category, because otherwise I'm expounding energy that is draining me on something that's really not worth it. Until you, I know I've said this before, I'm from Missouri, the show me state. So until you show me some level of allyship, truth,
Yeah.
we don't have anything really to talk about. Like I'll leave you there, but I'm over here doing this. And I think you, with that person, you have to decide, is it worth it right now? Because this over here is actually moving the needle. This over here is actually making a difference. So
Mm-hmm.
I need to put my energy there. If you're ready, like you can tap me and I'll like, oh, you ready? Let's go.
Okay, I like your perspective there. That I'm comfortable with adopting for myself. Because right now, you either here or you over there, and I need to, remember that you can step back in when you're ready to. When you're ready, I'm ready when you're ready.
Exactly. And as
Yes.
long as, and if you're not saying anything, I'm over here doing my work.
Yeah, people who are
Yeah.
exactly.
Because forgiveness is like, to your point, it is one of those things you do for yourself. And it's one of those things that is harder when it comes to people who show you really, really negative things about themselves and
Yeah.
how their impact to others, right? I think it's that impact to others. Just stop. Look
Yeah.
at what you're doing. But you have to first care about that. And when you see that they don't care, it's really hard to find that compassion and that empathy for them. And I think for me, I have embraced the fact that I'm okay with that when I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Because my peace of mind is fine and my spirit is fine, because I'm not thinking about you. Yes, you're doing wrong, but there are other folks who can pray for you. There are,
That's right.
there are other folks who can take care of that. Well, I'm going to be over here taking care of this circle, this group, because
Yeah.
this is what my spirit is telling me to do. But
Fair. That's very fair.
yeah, because we have to take care of our mind and our spirit, because otherwise it's not a sprint, right?
Yeah.
It's a marathon. And to a friend of mine, we will not be around by the time this actually makes a difference, right? The change that happens, like our ancestors, what they went through and what our parents went through and their parents went through, it's just that it's a long journey and it will not shift until those in power shift their minds. And
Yeah.
so we can hit some stuff to maybe chip away at it,
Yeah.
but that's
Keep moving forward, but don't expect to see the finish line tape.
exactly. There's no
Yeah.
red checkered flag for us.
Yeah. I was hoping to see that. Maybe I'll just get a symbolic one for my own enjoyment.
Yeah. So just hold that. Yeah. And
No,
no.
that's good perspective, ShawnJ. Thank you.
Oh, honey, that took a while. Woo! Yeah, that's you.
I'm going to play this back and write it down and read it in my morning reflections.
Sweet. Along those lines, is there one person, or if you could change the world, would you do it and why? Or if you could change one person's impact on the world, who would that be and why?
I think I'm going to go with if I could change the world. And a word you just said in our last question is one that I would spread, just touch every single person in the world, and that was compassion and empathy. I think that, in my humble opinion, what gets in our way as humans is the inability to step back and realize the humanity of somebody else and their journey and their story and how they're being impacted, and understand that it's not all about me. I'm not insignificant, but you are as important as I am. And what is happening in your world and what's going on in your world is influencing how we are meeting each other in this space, in this moment. And if I can keep that and hold that in my consciousness, then our time together, our conversation together, our impact on each other is going to have so much more meaning and significance than if we, don't have that. And I just feel like I wish I saw more of that just in humans. I just wish I saw more of that. And, to your point earlier about people's different lenses and different wirings and perspectives, it's like, I have a hard time with people who don't come into a space with that same level of empathy, because that's why I'm waiting for the apology that they don't even know they owe me, right? Because you didn't get that from me. You know what I mean? It's like, read your room and understand that not everything is an affront to you or an attack on you, and it's not about you, but this is about us, and how do we exist and support each other. That would be the one thing, if I could put a drop of that in everybody, that would be the thing I would do, and hopefully that would make a difference.
Yeah, put it in the water. It would. I believe it's that aspect of reading the room. Not everyone has that skill set.
Yeah.
With that empathy and compassion, is you want to read the room.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like there's the ability to read the room, and then there's the ability or the desire to want to read the room.
Yeah.
Have you been conditioned and brainwashed enough to know, oh, I just walk in the room, everything's about me. I don't have to worry about any of that. And if we could to get back to empathy, get back to compassion, and go a moment and go, okay, this isn't my space. This is a shared space.
Mm-hmm.
I need to remember to share myself, basically.
Mm-hmm.
If you share yourself, and a lot of folks are afraid to share themselves. They're afraid to be seen for who they are. And
you don't want to be vulnerable. You don't want to, open that opportunity to be disappointed or judged or, critiqued or whatever. So I get that.
I wish we would just open, because there's that moment of growth. If I can just open myself, and whatever happens, there's always going to be this elevation that happens in that moment. But.
Right. Or if not, there's wine that you can have later to lick your wounds. There's always some, some aerobic exercise, some Zumba, shake it off. But try.
That's the biggest thing. Just try it, because I think this is something we use in diversity and equity work, is if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing or learning.
Exactly. That's that learning edge, that growing edge.
Yeah. So get uncomfortable, folks.
Why I spend a lot of time alone now. Just kidding. It's COVID. That's why I spend a lot of time alone.
I do. To your point about being a introvert and how folks see us, I tell folks I'm an introvert with extroverted tendencies,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to. But I would prefer to be a small group of people, like 5,
Mm-hmm.
having like this nice, deep conversation, as opposed to a room full of like 50 or more folks who are like just talking about little stuff. And
Yeah.
and that's the hard part, is like I want that connection, and it's really hard to do that with surface stuff. It just
Exactly. Exactly. You know, so I hope it's okay if I interject this. I don't know where you were gonna go next, but we did talk about sharing and being open
yeah.
and honest and talking about our stories. So one thing that I learned about myself, first of all, I'm a deep empath, a deep introvert, and so you absorb a lot of energy that's, other people's stuff, right? And as I was going through some of my challenges, I started to have problems breathing, right? And I thought, oh, it's the wildfires, or I have asthma, or whatever. And it turns out, long story short, I was having panic attacks and anxiety attacks that I was unaware of. And, found out that, I'm somebody who struggles with um, depression and anxiety, and that I had to figure out ways to process all of that. And going to therapy was one of those ways that I started to, unpack it and learn, tools to deal with all of that. And I think I brought it up because we were just talking about, oh man, lost my train of thought, but there was a reason. Oh, I know what it was. These were things about myself that I didn't really understand. And so you kind of go through the world, like you were just saying, what's more of a comfort zone for us introverts would be a setting like A, whereas a lot of times in our work and our relationships with others, we're actually finding ourselves a lot more in a B setting or whatever. And that's okay, you can do it. But if that's all you're doing and you're not giving space to, your natural core and your way of being and your way of, processing the world, you start to have this like short circuit and this overload. And um, I guess I wanted to say that out loud because a lot of times we think, well, something's wrong with me that I can't do this all the time, or I can't be this person all the time. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there's also nothing wrong with talking to somebody about it and finding ways to take care of yourself. You've talked a lot about self-care and, self-preservation in this conversation, and I couldn't agree with you more. There's so many ways that happens, and those are just some of the things that have been part of my journey that I felt like I should share, because there also, sometimes we tend to feel like there's weakness in saying this is something that I deal with. This is something that I have to be mindful of, and I have to take care of myself. And that might mean I got to step back and say no, or not choose this particular activity or career or, you know, social gathering or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with me for doing that. It's just who I am. So,
And hopefully our society, we're slowly, not fast enough, slowly getting there to where we are not shaming folks.
yeah.
Them like going, I have a problem, I'm dealing with it, but I can't deal with that, so I'm gonna stay over here. Whereas we, oh, just brush it off. Oh, you'll be fine. Instead of like, hear the person and it'd be okay. And understanding, like, sometimes I was good at saying no. I learned no pretty early on in
Still
my
stuck
20s.
at it. I'm still bad.
Oh no, I learned it in my 20s, because what I found was, when I said yes and I really wanted to say no, it ate me up inside.
Yeah.
I would either get a headache, and bad attitude, and I'd be in a setting, and I'd be like going, I really don't want to be here. And then they go, oh, ShawnJ's an asshole. And I just
Yeah.
didn't want to be there. Instead of putting people in that, and then that has a ripple effect. So like now my energy is affecting everyone. If I'd have just simply sat my ass at home,
Right.
and been in my space like I wanted to have been, right? No
Yeah.
one would have been impacted. And I think if we can normalize the fact that we don't all need to go to the party,
Yeah.
we don't all need to go out to the bar. Some of us just want to be with ourselves for a moment, and that's okay. And not making that person feel guilty. Like, oh, well, he or she never wants to go out. They just want to be like, have you maybe picked up the phone and go, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
And then they go, well, I've been going through some stuff. It's been hard, but I just need this time to myself. But I appreciate you reaching out and checking on me, right?
Mhm.
Flip that switch instead of the judgment and shame switch.
Right. Oh, she's stuck up.
Yeah.
How many times I heard that?
Oh,
I
yeah.
haven't heard it in a long time, but I used to get it all the time in college. It's like, no, I just don't know how to talk to strangers.
Which is so
Very hard.
yeah.
But if you talk to me and we find something that we can really talk about, we could have a great relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's taking that time
Yeah.
doing that, right? Instead of judging you, oh, she's stuck up. Instead of going, hey, how you doing? And you go, oh, I'm fine. And it actually is a conversation of substance as opposed to
Substance.
what's your favorite color or what, is like, and that's always been my challenge when it comes to small talk. I can't do small talk. Can't do it. It's
Yeah.
irrelevant. It's unimportant. But if you're like setting off, like that's your first question is like something and then you go, so tell me about yourself. Like, oh, and you're
Right.
actually truly interested, then I hear you and I see you.
Exactly.
But yeah.
How do you know me? Strumming my pain with his fingers, singing my life with his words. Oh, ShawnJ, I did not know we had so much in common.
Yes, it's one of those things. I say, I feel you, child. I feel you.
Yeah.
What is something that brings you joy? And well, what is something that brought you, or continues to bring you joy?
By far, my family, in all its iterations. So, I grew up with an amazing mom and dad, totally overprotective, but learned a lot about being fierce for your family through them and my baby sister. Because for the most part, even though we are a large family, I grew up with it was the four of us in the house most of the time, and because my dad was married twice. Yeah. So anyway, point being, lovely family experience. My kids bring me immense joy. I am super duper happy with this family I've married into. They are amazing people, and it's like being in Memphis versus Seattle. It's like a whole different planet. Just everything is different. Everything is so different. And my family, though, it grounds me and supports me in my transition. And I love getting to know them and being a part of such an amazing foundation. And I love seeing what's unique about everybody. It's a large family, but there's something that's just, this is what, my stepdaughter does. This is what her, my other stepson is like a twin to, my oldest son, and just kind of learning how we all bring our uniqueness together to make this unit. Just I've been tickled pink about all of this, and there's the family I grew up in, and then the family that I am growing and creating now with the person who I love more than anything. My husband is amazing. And I'm so glad that I did find the courage to try again so that I can experience all of this, happiness, because when you're a little girl, you watch the Disney fairy tales, and there's the Prince Charming, and you get rescued and all this stuff, and then you realize that's not real life. But I almost feel like I do have that now, because I'm living so much of my own truth and joy with sharing it with somebody who is amazing. No, he didn't come rescue me out of the tower, but he was every bit as magical in my world as that Prince Charming was for that Disney princess, because he found that spark for me, and I give it back to him. It's a two-way street. So I would say just my family in general, but based on this, bizarre, wild journey that we're on together, all of us. So that's my answer to that one.
That's a big answer. I like how you said he didn't rescue you. I always believe that there is no such thing as a rescue. It's a finding. It's a finding of two spirits or two hearts coming together, and it's that energy is created out in the universe, and it's just a matter of everything aligning, but not aligning, right? It just, you have to be somewhere in that vicinity, and it just locks.
Absolutely, yeah, aligning, and the ignition of that spark. And the reason I equate it to the fairy tale is because of the happiness that I feel, right? Not that, and definitely there's no rescue. Who could really rescue me from I'm just kidding. That's a big job. But nobody wants to be rescued. I'm just not that much of a victim in this world. I'm not. I don't need to be rescued. I'm good. I'm standing strong. But I'm standing strong and happy in a partnership that is amazing and bringing out this, shine that I thought was gone. So that's nice.
And I like how you said shine, because I believe that it's two lights finding each other and then shining even brighter. So he has his light, you have your light. Neither one dims or dulls. They just shine. And I think the coming together is an even greater shine, but it's each having your own light.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Oh. Keep hope alive, ShawnJ. Keep hope alive.
I would say yes, keep hope alive, except I still at my core have this pessimism, but I do also have a testimony of success. Woo!
Yes, you do. Yeah. Is there someone that you have admired the most in your life, and why?
This is another one of those where I don't know that there's an individual per se that I would point to, but there is a type of person that I truly, truly admire, and I see them walking the earth, and I always want some of their energy. These are the creatives, the inventors, the entrepreneurs, and I admire them because they don't let fear or fear of failure or fear of trying stop them from doing something or making something new or finding a new path or discovering something. Because, I think in my world, I've always been one of those cautious, move with caution, to the point where you end up tripping over a lot of stuff, a lot of garbage. Whereas if you saw the world for what it could be, or a situation for what it could be, and you went after it, imagine the change that can come, imagine the greatness that can come from that. And, I don't want to be cliche right now. I'm finally getting around to reading Michelle Obama's story, and, just hearing about, just basically kind of that same spirit in Barack and herself. And, I see it around me. I mentioned my son, Neftali, who I think he's got that now. My husband, who, magically actually made music pay for his, he can make a life out of his craft. But, there's too many times in this life where we can, talk ourselves out of something, or, discovering something or trying something because we're, fearful. But if you have something in, that tribe, that spark that says, what if I try? Like, what about if I do this, if I hit this note, if I, create this film, if I write this book, if I, what happens if I try these two things together, or whatever? What do I discover? And I wish I had more of that in me. So I try to surround myself with that kind of energy, and absorb those tales of where things like that went right. Because, everybody will always tell you, the people who are successful failed a lot to get to that success. But if you couldn't keep finding the will to try and explore, you never get to that level of greatness. So it's the people who have that spirit are the ones I admire the most in this world.
Nice. And I would say you have that, because I think you are creative.
Oh, thank you.
And because you couldn't be creative and do diversity, you could not have not been creative to do diversity and equity and inclusion work, because the magic that you have to make for people to see things and hear things, it's like to hear it.
That is magical. Getting that to happen is a moment of tremendous magic and success.
And when you see it happen, you go, there you go. So
exactly. Well, thank you. Thank you for pointing that out, because, I just, you tend to think, I don't know that I ever do that. But it's important to me to keep trying to build that in myself. So
keep on building those blocks, girl. Keep on
I'm trying.
What would you like to be remembered for by those who know and love you?
Ooh, what would I like to be remembered for? I would like to be remembered from people who know me and love me. I want them to remember me as someone who saw them and heard them and stood by them, and just recognized them and their lives and their struggle. I think it goes back to that empathy, and I don't always feel like, when something happens in somebody's life, it's just human nature. You want to fix it. You want to be, comforting. You want to, make it better in that moment. And that's not always possible. In fact, a lot of times it's not. But what does matter is, not feeling like you weren't seen or heard, or, just being recognized. I matter, and I want to be remembered as a person who gave that to the people that I knew and loved. I'm here and I see you. That whole namaste. But it's just, the world is such a lonely place if you feel like nobody knows, nobody understands, nobody gets it. But I may not know everything that's happening with a particular individual, but they matter. And if you felt very low today, know that you encountered me, and it mattered to me that, that we had our time.
Nice. I noticed a pattern when I asked that question. It's similar to that. Being there, that making it matter, making that person know that they matter is very being seen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Goes back to your empathy and compassion.
Exactly. As you have also illuminated, my brother. So namaste. Hopefully there'll be more people like that in the world.
Well, we're going for it.
We're going for it. We're going to make everybody watch this video and learn.
Live and learn and pass it on.
That's right.
Any regrets?
Aside from not understanding math better, I wish I would have spent more time with my math tutor. I wish I would have gotten a math tutor. But other than that, I really can't say that I have any regrets. Like I was talking about earlier, e- every one of us makes mistakes, and there's gravity and consequences to every mistake. But in each one of those is the building block of who you become. And I'm really at a place in my life where I'm happy with who I am. And I wouldn't be this person if I hadn't gone through the things that I had gone through, made the mistakes I made so that I could learn and do better, or, change something that wasn't working. If none of that happened, I wouldn't be where I am. So I can't really say I have regrets. There have been hard times. There have been some painful moments, some pain points,
Yes.
to say for sure. And, ouch when they happened. But here I am, and I'm still standing and doing well. I really can't complain. So I can't say, aside from the fact that I can't add 2 and 2. It's 5, right? 7?
You ain't got
I'm
no.
just kidding. Anyway, I'm not trying to do math. I really wish I could do math better. But other than that, I can't say I have any regrets. No.
Math, yeah. You made it this far without it so far. You good.
Attached to, people who that's their strength. So, if I can, hey, so-and-so, you're really good at this. I might be good at something you're not. Let's get together. Let's work together.
Yep. There we go.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to share that you may have learned or the viewers to take away with?
I think I feel like I'm sounding like a broken record, but, I would just summarize that if you could learn anything from my story, it's that it's a good thing to take risks and to try some things that may be out of your comfort zone, and, honor who you are, but also remember that other people also matter, and their story might not be exactly what yours is, but you each have something to learn from each other. So listen as much as you talk, which I have not demonstrated very well in this conversation, but listen as much as you speak, because what other people have to share is valuable as much as you think your sharing is valuable. And you might, if you take that risk, you might land on something that's amazing. So don't be afraid to try.
Oh, thank you.
Woo!
And with that, I would like to thank my guest, Robin Clayton. Got your name right now.
You did. I've been through several iterations, so I don't ever fault anybody for getting it wrong. I've had a number of names.
So, thank you to my guest, Robin Clayton, for joining me underneath the shade tree. And tune in next time. Ciao, y'all.
Thanks ever so for joining us underneath the shade tree. If you enjoyed the show, please click like and subscribe, and be sure to join us next time. And remember, every day above ground is a gift. So let's do our best to make it matter with grace, courage, and no regrets. Now go be fantabulously fierce.